Now, I want to remind all our viewers at home, because I know they're anxious to be a part of this discussion. In a moment, we're going to get to our social media, but I want to get another question in from our studio audience. But those of you at home, please send your comments and questions on Facebook and also on Twitter. But let's go back to our audience. Sir, please tell us who you are, where you're from, and ask your question.
My name is Ron Gates, pastor of Greater Works Church here in Asheville, North Carolina. Thank you, Mark and WLOS, for this wonderful platform. My question is that there's usually an argument being that they've been denied their civil rights. But how can you equate the movement of marriage to civil rights compared to the 1965 Voting Rights Act or denial of the 3/5 Human Constitution, in which they was actually not censored, and the act where they wasn't even able to vote?
So the question is, Ashley, how does this compare to the civil rights issue? I mean, is it really a civil rights issue, or is that just kind of a platitude?
You know, I think we're in a time where people use terms and people use history as a stepping stone for their need. Is there some parallels? Absolutely. We know that you know, separate but equal doesn't work. We've seen it in history. It just doesn't work. We've seen people be fired. We've seen people be denied health care. We've seen people not be able to see their partners simply because of their marriage or of their relationship. Is it a direct parallel? No. I don't think you're going to find anybody who's going to say that. But there certainly are some parallels that have to be taken into consideration when we talk about separate but equal, which is how a lot of the civil rights came about.
Ken, do you agree?
Well, I think it's interesting that Ashley raises that example, because this country fought a civil war after which we adopted 3 constitutional amendments, changes to the Constitution, the federal Constitution, to deal with issues relating to race and race-related civil rights. Now, separate but equal was created by the Supreme Court in 1896. It was then the Supreme Court that took that back in the 1950s. But I think that actually points to a fundamental heart in this debate, whether it's we, the people, who are going to make marriage laws in this country, or whether it's going to be done by unelected, unaccountable judges. The Reconstruction Amendments were adopted by we, the people. Separate but equal came about as an act of judicial activism when judges acted contrary to the plain text of the U.S. Constitution.
Now, we've got a lot of people here with questions, but we have a lot of people at home who want to be a part of this debate. So we're going to go to our digital desk. Darcel, what do you have for us?
Well, Mark, we are getting a lot of feedback on Facebook and Twitter. Here's what's trending on Facebook: the religious angle, the Bible and how people interpret it, and the issue of reproduction. Now, here are a couple of the comments we've gotten from Facebook. Man with man and woman with woman is wrong in the sight of God, and if they don't give their hearts to God, they will end up in hell forever. That's from Robert Street. This one is from Brett Ramsberg. When I did my time in the Army, I don't remember my oath saying anything about defending the Constitution for only straight people. Hence, my passion for this cause. Now, on Twitter, a lot of the trend seems to be in support of gay marriage, but opponents are tweeting as well. We have this from @DJSurvivor. Gay and marriage don't belong together. Gay is another sexual sin. It's like saying cheating on your spouse is okay. Then @Lucy Lavinia, everyone sins. Stop hating just because people sin in a different way than you. Let God do his job and stand back. And this one's sort of a little off the wall, a little different. This is from someone on Facebook, Christopher Milner. Love doesn't exist in the heart of man or woman these days. If you want to marry the one you love, then find a way to marry yourself. Whatever. Okay, here's some results from our Snap poll. Is this a civil rights issue, a religious issue, or both? These are very early results. Right now we have 5 saying it's a civil rights issue, 3 a religious issue, and 7 saying both. We also have a question. This one is from Twitter, and it's from Out and About, North Carolina. And it says, here's a question. Other than religion, or that you don't like it, what's your objection to same-sex marriage?
John, what is your objection to same-sex marriage?
I'm not here to object to same-sex marriage. I'm here to affirm what I believe to be biblical marriage between a man and a woman. That's my position.
All right, but Joe, you're a pastor. Do you agree?
Well, I think that John and I are in agreement. I think all of us are in agreement in the sense that we all have a passion for marriage and strong, committed relationships. How we define that, I think, is where we're a little different. I think that what a faith community can do is support committed, loving, mutual, and just relationships, and not try to get into the issue of who should love who.
Can I interject? The problem with that, if you're going to base it on loving relationships, you can't just restrict that then to same-sex couples. What about incestuous relationships? What about polygamy? If it's about people loving each other, if that's the basis of it.
My comment was about mutual and just, which puts some limits on that.
My contention is that some people will call incestuous and polygamous relationships just. So that's a subjective term you use.
Joe, according to the second largest religion on earth, polygamy is just.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I think your website says your church has 1.1 million members. There are 7 million Muslims in this country right now, yet none of the imams, none of the clergy from that religion, the second largest religion on earth, can practice marriage in accordance with their faith and allow polygamous marriages in this country.
I'm going to jump in real quick and say that there's a lot of biblical truth in polygamy. We know Moses had 2 wives. It's in there. So there's already grounds for some of those things. As far as polygamy, there are certainly ways you can put in restrictions. There's certainly issues with gender discrimination with same-sex marriage that comes into play. There are certainly ways around that to keep those limits in place. That, to me, that polygamy, incest, those are all religious beliefs, and that's fine, but there are ways to have same-sex marriage with it not being about religion.
Yeah. There are many things that the Bible says, but the question is, what does it teach? And how do we approach that responsibly, in a scholarly, responsible way, where we rightly interpret the truth? I think comments like my colleague had just made misrepresent the teachings of Scripture.
On this, I'm speaking here from a legal into public policy perspective, and there are 192 nations around the world. In 50 of them, polygamy is legal, and polygamy has been legal for 5,000 years as a matter of public policy and as a matter of law. So I don't see it as a religion issue. I'm saying if you legally say that marriage is the consenting union of adults, then why do you say 2? Why not 3? Why not 4 if everyone consents to join in? It seems like some people are saying, I want marriage equality for me, but not for people who have a different idea from me, and I don't understand that.
So then, those who argue for the equality for same-sex marriage, that argument in itself discriminates against others who may want to enter into loving relationships and have the same rights. So why should it be limited to 2 men or 2 women?
I have to say, I think that's a half-truth. Whatever someone uses as the reason for same sex, yes, that might be true. But if I'm using something that is not based on religion at all, that is not a true statement.
I'd like to remind us that in the Bible there are 40 different kinds of families that are identified. Some of those are polygamy, some of those are a variety of other things. I'm a little confused as to how we get off on a polygamy discussion when we're talking about gay marriage. The couples that I know, the lesbian and gay couples, bisexual, the people I know are no different than the other couples in my congregation who are married and heterosexual. They want to be in a loving, committed relationship. They're not wanting to expand to some strange thing that doesn't exist out here for us. They want to be in loving families, and we have laws that say you can't do that.
I wouldn't say it's strange. There are 600,000 polygamists in the U.S. right now, studies say, whose marriages are not recognized. And there are people being denied immigration into this country because they are in polygamous marriages, and under federal law, you cannot immigrate to this country permanently as a polygamous family. I don't think it's strange. There's more polygamous marriages on earth than there are gay marriages on earth.
It's only
So-
strange to me that you bring it up in this context.
Well, the context is we're talking about marriage. We're not just
Why don't
talking
we-
about gay marriage. We're
Why don't we
talking about
leave?
marriage.
Why don't we leave it there? Because I suspect this particular topic may come up again. Now, by the way, some people might say a disadvantage to a polygamous marriage and multiple wives is there might be multiple mothers-in-law. No, I wouldn't say that, of course, because I love my mother-in-law. But some people might say that. Let's go back to the audience for another question. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, and ask your question.
My name is Sally Marshall, and I'm the mother of a gay daughter who I adore and who is one of the most fabulous women that ever lived. She's a minister, and she is accepting and loving. And she was denied entry, emotional, to her baby daughter's death because she wasn't the mother. And where is the justice, both judicially and the justice for those religious, that they don't have a heart about something so deeply painful as this? Thank you.
So, well, John, all right, so what about those people who have, whether they're recognized by law, but have some kind of emotional relationship and attachment? In this case, she's got this relationship with these children and may be denied access. Or, of course, if we hear the discussions about partners who may not, have issues with hospital visitation and so forth. How do we deal with that if we don't recognize a civil union or gay marriage?
My perspective is that emotions and love do not invalidate truth. I have children. I love my children, but it doesn't mean that just because I love them, I have to endorse or celebrate what they do. And I think there are other ways for gay couples to get the legal rights that they believe they're entitled to without changing the definition of marriage for all the rest of us.
All right, so Ashley, if they resolve those issues, the visitation and so forth, does that solve the problem, or is there still a problem that exists?
I still think there's a problem that exists. I mean, there's over 1,000 benefits that don't apply to same-sex couples.
That could be
Period.
addressed legally, though.
It's already being addressed legally at the cost of thousands of dollars to same-sex couples that is not being required by heterosexual couples. When you're in a car with your family and you have an accident, how many heterosexual couples have to worry about how much paperwork, the right paperwork, being in the right hands at the right time when they get there to be able to make medical decisions for their partner or their kids? Zero. No heterosexual couple has to worry about that. And at the end of the day,
I don't know if that's true.
that is absolutely a fact.